Okay, I think we're about ready. So it's that time of the conference where we assemble a panel of experts to give their views and experiences on the theme of the conference, which is really about the future, but more specifically Gen Z or Generation Z, which always scares me a bit as it feels as though we have got to the end of life's alphabet. But I'm reliably informed that Gen Z Alpha is fastly transitioning, so we should at least get another round of 26 generations. Although, if you listen to it earlier, it sounds like it's going to be Gen AI that gets us before anything else. So, anyway, Gen Z, it's important to us as an industry because the latter part of the generation are now moving from further and higher education into our workplaces. So, this is an important discussion in my view, and it follows on nicely from what we've been talking about. So to introduce our panel, we've obviously got two people in the middle who are a bit younger than everybody else here. So I'll start with at the far end. We've got Chris Vujicic, Martin Alanis from NOAA, Thomas Haworth, Nick Mountain, MD of PH Mountain, Rad Kolbaba, you'd think I'd know that one, being that he works for us, site manager of RH Fiberboard, and Thomas Haworth, production manager at Fencom Manor Packaging. And we are really lucky today as well to have two A-level students who have made their way down to conference from Peterborough UTC, George Barber and Evelina Markey. That's not actually a surname, but I've been given grace to shorten it. Thank you so much for coming. Your contributions today will be absolutely massive, so I really appreciate you being here. Plus, you've brought down the average age of our attendees quite considerably, but actually probably just by around about a week. But we are very grateful today for your views and perceptions. So, and that's, I think, what we'll start with is some of those perceptions around the industry. So, Nick, if you could take this one. What is your general perception of the corrugated cardboard industry as a career choice?
So, I think that it's probably been said before, actually. I agree with what Tim has said earlier today, is that it's a bit kind of left behind. It's a bit, I don't know what the word is, but there's a lot more to it than what people would think just from looking in from the outside. So I grew up in Louth, live in Louth, so it's a bit of a packaging town, so I just kind of fell into it. And I think that's the same, as you mentioned, for a lot of people. But it's only once you get in it that you realise that there's actually more to it, whether it be engineering or graphic design or sales, and there's a lot of opportunities there that people wouldn't assume. I know one thing for me that's important for me is I like to travel, and I think the packaging industry is generous in that there's a lot of opportunity, which again doesn't get advertised, and I think getting that message out there a lot more would help.
Thanks, Nick. So let's throw our young people into it. George, what are your general perceptions of the corrugated industry?
I'll be completely honest, I can't say I've really thought much about it or heard about it, because you think of cardboard, but you don't think of where it's come from or how it gets made or anything like that.
Fascinating, isn't it? It's all of a sudden out there. So what are you studying, George?
I'm studying engineering as a BTEC.
Okay, well that will transition perfectly into the corrugated industry, so you now don't have to join us by accident. So that's really good. And Evelina, same question to you?
It's when I first heard it, when Sonia came to me, she's like, do you want to talk on a conference panel about corrugated cardboard? I searched up cardboard. I was like, okay, it sounds very boring. I looked more into it, and then you start to think about it. Cardboard, there is so, it's packed everywhere. You can find it everywhere. There is so much you can do with it. From recently, I made a prototype for one of my projects made out of cardboard, and it was great. There's so much you can do with it. You don't even need to use glue, and it folds perfectly. You can make it as shock resistant as you need it to be. Thicknesses.
Tim, she's after your job.
There is truly more to it than what meets the eye at first.
Okay, thank you. So sorry, back to Evelina. Sorry, what are you studying?
T-level engineering.
Yeah, again, same, perfectly transitional. So I've got to ask you actually, George, did you have to Google what it was, corrugated? You can say yes. Yeah. Well, I had to Yahoo it 20 years ago, so that's how far we've come on. But just moving on to maybe some of the misconceptions. Chris, I'd like to ask you that. Did you have any misconceptions, and how would you go about promoting the industry to younger generations?
I think, I could say the same thing, that cardboard is on the outside a bit boring, but I think actually one of the main misconceptions, which I didn't realize that, and I think the general public thinks that packaging is waste, and I think that is quite a big problem, because everything needs packaging and it is everywhere. So I think kind of getting rid of this narrative of packaging eventually does become waste, but I think from the outside it doesn't look like that. And I think the two ways I'd go about promoting it. The first one is, I think brands are very important. I think for people my age, brands are a big thing. It's a lot. I think the younger generation cares a lot about their appearance. So I think working for a brand, it makes it seem like an important job, and whether it doesn't have to be a luxury brand, it could be in the food industry and packaging, Nestle, Unilever, or even on a smaller scale, working with local companies, whether it be dairy produce, pet food, anything you can see in the supermarket that proves that your work is coming to life. And I think, if we're being honest, consumers are not really interested where the packaging is coming from. They don't really care about you guys, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But if you can associate that to a brand, I think it would be good. And I think that might be one for Tim, but I think maybe if we could get brand owners to present at a conference like this, I think that could be quite interesting.
Okay, thanks, Chris. So moving on to some of the barriers for younger generations into our industry. Question for you, Tom. Why do you think younger generations might overlook the corrugated cardboard industry as a career option?
I think, as we've heard, we're not very visible. I left school in 2008 and didn't have a clue about the industry or what I was walking into the first day on the shop floor. There was nothing like this. There was nothing at school fairs. Obviously, we've heard of the work that Mike's trying to do, Steve did in primary schools last year. But I think collectively we're not doing enough. And additionally to that, I think there's a perception that we're not very glamorous. Corrugated packaging. We need to scratch that layer off, because there's some complex processes and complex technology that goes into this industry. And I think that's what we need to start promoting.
Yeah, very good. So Tom and Evelina, whichever one of you wants to answer this one, I mean, why do you feel that you might overlook a career in this industry?
I think it's the fact that a lot of the companies that have been promoted to us as people in like A levels and that type of thing, is we're seeing brands like Caterpillar, car brands that you see when you want to go into, say, engineering as a whole. We're seeing all the companies that are a lot more glamorous, a lot cooler. You know, you think, oh, I'll work on a plane or work on a digger or something. You know what I mean? Like make that type of thing.
Yeah.
You don't think about make the machines behind corrugated cardboard. So I think it's the fact that it didn't seem that interesting.
Yeah, sure. And I suppose you probably saw the letters SPA and thought you were going to the spa this afternoon as well, so I'm really sorry. This is where you've ended up. But Evelina, do you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, I reckon it's overlooked because we don't actually know what it consists of necessarily. Because as George mentioned, we look at very glamorous big companies, maybe something that, we look at working after we've got years and years of experience, working part of a very big project. But I think it's important to also think about the building blocks, your foundations, where you start, where you get that experience. And I think something like this, corrugated cardboard, although it's not glamorous, I think it's such a good foundation, especially for new and upcoming students. If they hear about it, if they hear the benefits that I can become a good engineer through this, and if interests them, seeing Mike mentioned earlier, he asked you guys who was actually, who loved this industry, who was interested. All of you answered, and that is, passion. It's good to see. It's something we need to see as well, because that transfers over. And so, sure, we may move on from this industry, but if we start here, some people will also find that passion you found and stay for longer. It's just a case of branching out.
So basically, you're seeing Caterpillar and you're seeing the end products, but all the way through the logistics, the supply chain, you might know a little bit about the design work at the start, but it seems like there's a whole chunk missing in between that's not being...
Yeah, precisely. Okay. And, because we're quite young, we don't really think about that.
Well, some of us are quite young. All right, not
Sorry.
So, moving on then, what specific changes could employees make to better appeal to younger talent? If I could ask you, Rad, that question.
Thank you, Steve. I believe it was mentioned here quite a few times. One was by Tim, that the industry where it was and where it is now, it's completely different. But the young people or the younger generation, they are not aware about that. So I think if we doing an interview, if we onboarding the people, we need to tell them what is actually industry, that we operating machines would cost some of the millions, and how interesting could be the career and the progression in our industries.
Okay, because you came from a furniture background, didn't you, before
yes,
you joined us? So how did you see our company?
When I come in, I was like, it's making boxes, cannot be that hard. Oh, damn, I was wrong. When then it was come stereos, forms, crash lock, that it is very interesting industry, and I think if we can explain it much more better, lots of people will get much more interest into it.
Okay, thanks, Rad. So moving on to some of the recruitment practices, Tom, a question for you. Would you be more inclined to join the industry if employers showcase real-life success stories or testimonials from current employees?
Yes. I think the key word in that is real. Yeah, real testimonials, real stories about career successes, real pathways into the industry and how to build a career in the industry, a real day in the life in the industry is always going to be better than a job description or a marketing ad because it's real, in my opinion. And firsthand, as part of the Emerging Leaders, we've had multiple guest speakers come into the sessions and tell us exactly these stories. And they're hugely motivating. Have been for me, and I think they would be for anyone looking from outside the industry in.
Yeah, and it's basically going back to what George says, is there are no case studies. There's no stories. There's Caterpillar and iPhone, and they've got these packages at the end, but it's not really coming through to the rest of the story related to that. So how important is it for employers to highlight long-term career growth and opportunities during the recruitment process? Rad, if I could ask you that one, please.
Yeah, no problem. I think if we show our new employees that we care and they are more than just number, we might retain the skills and retain good people. That they are part of our business, not just number of 132, and they not just clock in and clock out, but we count with them, and we take care of them. They take care of us.
Thank you. Thanks. So, attraction to the industry. Chris, if I could come back to you on this one, please. What aspect of the corrugated cardboard industry would appeal to you most? And how important is a company's commitment to environmental sustainability when considering a job in the industry?
I think I actually first approach the question kind of as a negative. I'd say I wouldn't focus too much on career stability, because I think we live in a world now where young people are being told to try different things, to go out, explore. And I think it's no longer a world where people get a job for life. So I think we should also, when looking at recruitment as well, we shouldn't be, let's say, dissuaded by people who have been changing careers every 6 months, 1 year. I think it's good to give people that opportunity. So I think we should be focusing more definitely on sustainability and innovation. And definitely, I mean, I agree, sustainability is a very important point for me. But I think also going to kind of the innovation side, I think design is also a very, very big one. And as we all know, packaging from the outside is not as attractive. But I think if we can show people that there are developments in the industry, there's new brands coming up. I mean, earlier, these plastic-free brands, you've got Notpla, Zampla is another one, and these plastic-free barrier coatings, I think, even though it may not necessarily apply to everyone's practices here, I think promoting that there is a variety in the industry and that these are very real options out there, I think that is much more attractive. And I think just to end on a quick anecdote, I went to the ECMA conference last year in Berlin, and they had a whole section dedicated to design from students in, all over Europe. And there were some really, really good designs there. And I think it's a matter of focusing on the design aspect and the creativity part. And I think that's definitely something that we should be focusing on here.
Thanks, Chris. Just to keep you on the mic for a minute, obviously, Nick, Tom and Rad, they're much more practical hands-on roles being site managers, so they're seeing boxes every single day. With yourself, obviously, you're a market analyst, and you could be analysing the markets of AI or motor car or whatever it is you want to do. So, going back to what attracted you to the industry, I'm just keen to understand how that worked in terms of how you found your feet in packaging.
I arrived here by accident. I think I was looking for sustainability-based roles, really. Packaging definitely is not at the top of my list.
So that's the key message for you, is that sustainability, environmental aspect.
Sustainability, it is, yeah. But I think also it's the wider application. So the fact that it does apply to much more than just boxes. And I really do the easy work. I put some numbers on the screen, and when they're wrong, well, I guess we'll do another prediction. But obviously these, there are jobs everywhere. You can be forecasting, predicting. You can be in the warehouse, there's sales. There's really everything. So.
Thanks, Nick. I'd like to throw another one into you, if that's okay, because I know you've done some sustainable activities around your facilities as well. How do you feel that's gone down with customers, suppliers, and general colleagues and things?
I think it's been a massive help, actually. So our roof's covered in solar panels now, and it's been we've tried to put it out there as much as we can on LinkedIn and on our brochures, etc. It's had really positive response when I've gone out to sites to see customers, and they see it. They see you as, I hope they see it as that you're a real innovative company and caring about that sort of thing.
Yeah, especially for you as well. Not necessarily, your marketplace is more trade, so it's not even for the end users. So I think it does hold a lot of water, what you said there, and there's some good stuff going on. So it's good. So moving on to industry strengths and challenges. Tom, what do you consider the most rewarding aspect of working in this industry?
Teamwork. From day one, I walked in a shop floor. I started running a roller press on the shop floor and hot melt gluing a box together. And it wasn't about what I did, it's what we did. It was a team of 3. And it was about how do we get what the customer needs at the end of this week. And every role that I've been involved in up until today, that's still evident. It's all about teamwork. It's all about building teams. It's all about collaboration together to meet the end goal. And even today, coming together as an industry and association, again, is it's teamwork again, but on wider issues. And we're all pushing each other to make better improvements. And that's my favourite aspect.
So Bernard was saying earlier about some of the aspects that AI can't help us with, and teamwork's all wrapped up in that emotional intelligence and those relationships and positivity, and I think that's probably something that AI can't give us in the future, so we may be okay. Rad, if I could ask you the same question, please.
You put me on the spot now. Every day is different. You never have same day. You never get bored. Every customer requires different box, different attention to details, and you're always moving forward. You never get bored.
Okay, thank you. So, and brings us on to the final question. Nick, back to you. How can employers better communicate the value of a career in this industry?
I think within the industry there's a lot of innovation going on. Everywhere you look, people are investing in automation. We've got digital printing, bioenergy, all that kind of thing. And I think we need to showcase that more in the recruitment process. So we shout about it to our customers from the rooftops. But maybe if you want to recruit and you want to bring in the best people and maintain them, shout about it to them as well. And working with students to try and bring them in. Rolls-Royce and Caterpillar that's been mentioned, they've got the luxury of being glamorous right from the outset.
Yeah.
I think we've maybe got to work a little bit harder to get the message across, but it is there if you want to try and find it.
Thank you. And we're probably going to get a roasting here, but let's give it a go. George, Evelina, how can we better communicate to people like yourselves the value of the career in this industry?
I think it's promote yourself. Get in the schools, because that's how I've heard about a lot of companies. Get into secondary schools, sixth forms, promote yourself, go to careers fairs. Another thing is, like, when I'm looking for my apprenticeships, because I've got to apply, join the real world, scary. The .gov website, I'm always checking that for new apprenticeships, so if you get yourself on there, you can promote yourself. Maybe some marketing, there's loads of different platforms that help young people find jobs and apprenticeships. Get yourselves on those platforms, because then young people...
So the careers fairs and the things that happen in colleges and schools, they are actually attended. My daughter tells me that they're not, and she's 15, so
Well, I attend them, so...
Okay. Okay. And Evelina?
Yeah, pretty much what George said. It's also great if you can provide tours of your production lines, how everything works. Those sweet factories where they show you how they're stretching out the sweets and how exactly.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
It's thrilling. You wouldn't think it, but I'm there, captivated by how they're stretching that candy. But honestly, it's the same. Some people won't like it. You can't avoid that. But there are definitely people who are interested who'll see it and they're like, you know what? I could really look into this. It's not too bad. Reach out, branch out, talk to us.
Well, I think our students today deserve a massive round of applause for coming up here. It's just amazing. So I've got to ask you guys, are you okay to take some questions from the audience?
Yeah.
Okay. So if we could...
Can I go first with a question? Is that all right? I've been intrigued and listened really hard to this. Now, I have a question, and it's like a straw poll. I'm going to go along and ask each one of you. Do you think it's individual companies that need to promote a career within their workplace, or do you think the industry should be doing that at career fairs? So you can just say industry or company. That would be helpful, and just pass it along so we get a straw poll.
I'd say company.
Maybe cheating, but I'd say both.
I also wanted to say both.
I agree with both.
Same.
Both.
I think just you, Tim, actually.
Any more questions? We've got a mic here. If you've got a question for these young people, please put your hand up.
When I was a lad, I used to avoid, when my mum and dad were in the box making business and I was at school, and I used to avoid telling people what they did for a living because it was almost an embarrassment saying they make boxes. And it's not until you're involved with it that you realise how wrong that is. What is the perception now about if you heard that same message from somebody, or your friend or something is in the box making industry? What's the perception generally?
To chuckle. But it's a case of if it works for you, it works for you. You know, at that point, you shouldn't care what other people think. And the people who do, you tell them about it because, you know, they'll come to you. But not in all cases. Still branch out.
Hey, this is, I guess, going to each of you in line, perhaps. How would you feel, if I start left to right, your career is progressing within the packaging industry compared to friends that you might have known from school or of a similar age? Are there, for example, some really high-flying industries that you know your friends are part of?
I would say, I think my answer might be slightly different because I work for a very small company, so there are only 5 of us, 2 here today. But I think I've progressed much more quickly than I expected. But again, I do have a different office job to the rest of them. I think it's given me just, as Nick was saying, opportunities to travel. I never thought in less than a year I'd be speaking at a conference here. So I think, and in comparison to some of my other friends, I think it's not always a good thing to be a small person in a massive company. So I think it has given me a good progression so far.
I guess for me, being part of a family business, it's been beneficial for me to join, I guess, and carry on the legacy. So I'd say yeah, it's been better. I didn't want to join initially, I have to be honest. Kind of got dragged in kicking and screaming almost, but I think it's true what people say, once you're in, I think you're in.
It's great. I can't complain, you know, cardboard.
My MD is sitting in the audience, so yes, I am very happy. I love my job, and thank you very much.
Same here, Sean. I'm happy too.
Yeah, I'm really happy as well.
Well said.
It's going great.
Have we got a couple of minutes? Maybe one more question?
It's actually slightly related to the last question because my general manager started working for the business when he was 16, and he's now running the business. Although it's a small business, it's not Caterpillar or JCB. But you know, Tom, you started on the shop floor. Do you think that if you knew that was a real possibility with just interest and effort and interest, really, it's all about being interested. Do you think that would have made a difference to trying to attract people like these young guys here?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, like I said, I walked into the industry with no knowledge about it at all. I've been blessed with the opportunities that have been presented in front of me. It's been excellent. And And that's why we've got to do more of that. We've got to show people that there is a path. Even walking on the shop floor in production, it's been great.
Okay, we've got a couple of minutes, so I just wanted to bring up the teachers who have brought the students here today. I'm told not to say Tony. So Tony and Sonia. So if anyone's got any questions for the teachers at all, speak now. If not, I've got one. So, oh, sorry, go Sean.
It's all right. Yeah, no, we've looked at apprenticeships and things, and we've been advised on different benefits, what's important, and it's really to the teachers and the students. What do you think is important to you on your career path? Is it, you know, for a lot of people it's hard cash, but is it more the career, more the training, more the soft touches? You know, we've been even advised to give a company moped because a lot of young people can't afford that, haven't got one, their friends haven't got one, and they're saying to us that actually that defines us differently. Is that worth doing, or is it really the career path, or what's really important to, what do you think is important to them and what do they think is important to them?
Would you do it for a moped, George?
A moped would be nice, but when I look at companies, the most appealing thing that's been for me is a company that after I do my apprenticeship, right, or if I'm during my apprenticeship and I find that I don't like it, a company that will work with me to find a job in that company that I like, and then after the apprenticeship will find me a job or help me with my future prospects after the apprenticeship. That's what I find most appealing, is a company that will help me with my career path afterwards.
So it's quite interesting at the moment because a lot of students, people coming in, they're saying, well, what do you want? And like George says, it's not about initially necessarily, but it's about what do I get long term? A moped would be lovely. I'd like a moped. But what am I going to do in a couple of years' time? I finished my apprenticeship. What qualifications do I get? You know, we went down to Dyson last year, and the Dyson run their own university, and they run a very good apprenticeship scheme. And it's 4 years. You do a year in each one, more or less, of their kind of specialties: electrical, mechanical, design, software. And then at the end of it, they say, right, well, you've completed your training, here's your master's degree. Where do you want to work? Did you like the mechanical bit? We did. Would you like to keep doing that? Or how about electrical, or maybe going down design? Would you like to work in our warehouse or factory here, or do you want to go to our development plant in Malaysia? And here's your salary going to be in 4 years. Yeah, that's 50 odd grand when you finish there. But it's not about necessarily looking at what I get from just the apprenticeship. It's where do I get to go with that apprenticeship? What can I do? Is it a recognisable qualification that I can take? Like George says, if I get really fed up in the packaging industry, can I take this to become a mechanical engineer in the automotive? Or is this going to be valued for the rest of my life if I'm going to dedicate this amount of time to it? Do you want anything?
I just want to see transferable skills, but you pretty much covered that.
Okay, any other questions? Okay, I've got one more. Just as teachers and careers advisors, is that right? I'm going to ask you the same question I asked right at the start. What is your general perception of the corrugated cardboard industry after you've been here for a day? Sonia.
I don't think that really works because we've both been in the industry. So
oh, okay, that doesn't work.
I fell into print 30 years ago and fell out of it just recently. It's perception. It's about, boxes. Let's face it, Amazon wouldn't survive without them, would they? You know, that is what you guys do. But it's about letting the younger people know that Amazon wouldn't survive and their packages wouldn't turn up without those boxes.
So a bit like Sonia, I'm a bad person to ask that. I mean, I suppose I'm the other way round. So I was in the packaging industry and I jacked it all in to become a school teacher. I mean, who could face working with Mike? But serious hat on. I think a good example of this is, when I spoke to these guys and said about coming, and they really didn't know anything about it. But a few weeks ago, we hosted a partner engagement event, and we invited companies from around the area to come and spend time and see what we do. And we host careers events. Now, all schools host careers events, but a lot of them are box-ticking exercises because they have to. Not all of them, but a lot of them are. There weren't any packaging companies there. There was, well, apart from Mike. And he was there because I asked him. The point is that these guys don't know anything about this industry. They don't know about how interesting it is. They're looking at Marshall Aerospace and going, look at all these problems I've got to solve. Look at these fantastic benefits I get from it. But there's similar problems in the packaging industry. We're still designing things, we're still manufacturing things, we're still innovating, we're still problem solving. I show people the infill from products we buy now. People are moving away from all the polystyrene and all this sort of nonsense, and they're using some beautifully designed corrugated infill. Well, someone had to design that. That's interesting. That's the sort of thing that's sexy. People come and do that for fun. But they don't know about it. So nobody's going to join an industry that they haven't heard of. And if we can host an event with 40, 50, some of the big events that we go to, because I go to these events as well to recruit for sixth form students, there's no packaging companies there either. So if we're not going to events, if you're not present at them, well, nobody's going to know about it, and nobody's going to want to come and work there. They mentioned Caterpillars, because Caterpillar put a stand up in our school and said, come to us and do an apprenticeship. Who are some of the other companies? Like Codem?
Yeah, Codem Composites, and Baker work with Amazon and Network Rail. It's all engineering based, and at the end of the day, some of these students, do they really mind what industry it is? If it's engineering and they can take it apart and fix it, actually that's what floats their boat. Right.
Or make new ones. So yeah, I think that's the answer is not so much what's the perception, because the perception is there is no perception. Nobody knows about it. And that, unfortunately, can only be fixed kind of from your end. Speak to your local schools, especially the UTCs. UTCs are designed for this kind of thing specifically. We're supposed to engage with partners. But we can't engage with you if we don't know that you exist, and we don't know that you exist if you don't try and engage back.
That was so insightful, thank you, the whole thing. And I've got to say, our emerging leaders, I think we should be really proud of them as well for coming up here today. So thank you so much for all your time.